Hello learners, welcome to this course on preparation of research proposal in social sciences. I am Dr. Pratik Chaurasia, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Education, Banaras Hindu University. Today we are going to discuss our lecture number 25, which is based on formulation of hypothesis of the study. We have discussed various aspects of research proposal and basics of hypothesis, but today we will do it in a more practical manner, that how to form hypothesis of the study. So let us start. Key learning themes for today's lecture. First, what does formulating a hypothesis mean? Second, essential components of good hypothesis. Third, step by step how to formulate a hypothesis. Types of hypothesis in formulation. Educational implication of formulated hypothesis and criteria checklist for hypothesis formulation. So, these are the key learning themes for today's discussion. So, let us start and discuss all this one by one. First of all, what does formulating a hypothesis mean? This is very important to understand that when you are in a process or in a step where you are actually forming a hypothesis, you have to understand that what you are actually going to do. We can see here definition. Formulation of hypothesis involves crafting a clear, concise and testable statement predicting a relationship between variable based on existing theory and evidences. This is very important to understand that when you are in a phase to develop hypothesis, you have to very clearly understand that what is the intent of formulation of hypothesis. You have already understood that what is hypothesis. We have discussed all the basic aspects of hypothesis, but as a researcher, it is very important thing that we have to understand that why to form hypothesis. Is it really worthy? Is it really required? Can we not do research without formulating a hypothesis? So, you can see here that formulation of hypothesis involves crafting a clear, concise and testable statement. It is a statement predicting a relationship between variables based on existing theory and evidences. Whatever existing theory you have, whatever variables you have in your research, you have to establish a tentative relationship among them which you are going to test further. That is why you need to make a hypothesis. Key focus: identifying variables. The moment you are in a process, the moment you are going to form your hypothesis, you have to understand that first thing you have to identify your variables. You have to figure out that which variables are there and how they are going to affect each other. Without this, it is not easy to form a correct and appropriate hypothesis. So, first is that have a very key focus on identifying a variables. Second is predicting relationship. There comes the researcher's understanding of different aspect of research as well as whatever review of literature a researcher has done. We have discussed it in a previous lecture also, that whenever you are going to predict relationship, your understanding as a researcher is very important and significant. Because whenever you are going to predict any kind of a relationship, definitely you should have a basic understanding about the variables, how they functions, how they affect and how they are dependent or independent on other variable. If you understand it accurately, then definitely you are going to predict relationship appropriately. And third is grounding predictions in theory or prior findings. Whatever theory you have read, whatever prior findings you have related to your area of research or variable which you are considering in your research, you have to look that whether it is aligning with that or not, it is being rooted into that aspects or not. Because the moment you form a vague hypothesis, actually you are not going to perform it properly, because it is a kind of a tentative statement which you are going to test. And suppose when you have your statement wrongly formed, then definitely you are going to test it wrongly. Therefore, it is very important and a prime concern for a researcher to relate whatever hypothesis you have formed to existing theories and prior findings. Essential components of a good hypothesis. Variables clearly defined. Here you have to again understand this thing, that when you are in a process of formulating hypothesis, it's a kind of a recap to understand that what are the essential component of a good hypothesis. First is variable should be clearly defined, whether dependent variable or whether independent variable. Relationship between variables predicted. What is the relationship? How one variable is affecting another variable, in what sense it is affecting, or in what sense variable B is affecting variable A. You have to make clarity about this thing. Directionality. It is if required, means when you are looking into some kind of aspects of positive, negative, high, low, means you should, if you are looking some kind of a direction in a hypothesis, if you want to test some kind of directionality in your research, then you have to form and understand directionality of your hypothesis. Next is testability, should be measurable. It is very important aspect that whatever you are forming as a statement in the form of a research hypothesis, it should be testable. If it's not testable properly, it's not measurable, then it makes no sense to a researcher. Grounded in existing knowledge based on prior research, just now I have discussed. So these are the important characteristics of a hypothesis. Whenever you are forming a hypothesis, please look into this aspect, that whether your hypothesis satisfies these things or not. And if it is satisfying, then definitely you are moving towards making a good and appropriate hypothesis related to your study. Step by step, how to formulate a hypothesis. So let us discuss how we will formulate a hypothesis. Identify research problem. This is very interesting to understand, that first of all, when you are in a stage to form a hypothesis, definitely you have your research problem. So identify and define it more clearly. For example, you can see, why do some students excel in online learning while others struggles? It's a research problem, that why students struggle in online learning whereas some are struggling. Review literature. Example, find studies on factors affecting online learning. This is very important to understand, that what is the order of forming a hypothesis. When you are trying to form a hypothesis, be specific what to do first and then what to do after that. For example, here you are starting with identifying a research problem, and then you are moving towards review literature. Example, find studies on factor affecting online learning. Here one thing you have to take care, that before identifying research problem also you have to conduct a literature review, because you do not get a research problem all of a sudden. You have some idea, you have some thought, and you are doing review also, and moment you finalize your research problem, you identify your research problem, again you have to do a specific kind of review of literature related to your particular research problem. For example, we are doing here to find studies on factor affecting online learning. Next is define variables. Independent, dependent. For example, level of self-regulation, and dependent, academic performance. Next is state expected relationship. Now these two steps, define variable and state expected relationships, are of prime importance, and it's a bit technical also, that whenever as a researcher you have conducted some literature review to identify the factors affecting online learning, then ultimately you will have a variable. Some variable will be dependent and some will be independent, and it's a very important aspect that you identify that variables properly. Properly means which one is dependent, which one is independent, which variable is affecting the other variable, which variable is causing the change in other variable, that you have to identify. Next is the after, when you define your variable, identify your variable, you have to state expected relationship. Expected relationship means which one seems to affect other one. Higher self-regulation leads to better academic performance. You can clearly see. Now you can move on to the identifying research problem. Just go in a reverse order. What is the research problem? You can see here on the screen. Why do some students excel in online learning while others struggle? This is the problem. And now when you are establishing a relationship, you can see here, higher self-regulation leads to better academic performance. It means, you can see, now we are reaching more closer to the problem in terms of solving it. We are reaching more closer to the problem. Let us move one more step. Now, draft the hypothesis. This is the final stage. After these 4 aspects, you are going to draft hypothesis. Example, students with higher self-regulation skills perform better in online course than students with lower self-regulation skills. Now you can see how logically, how systematically, and how scientifically we are trying to address and counter one research problem. Now you can see in a reverse order, you are drafting hypothesis. Before that, you are making a relationship between variables. Then before that, you are defining variable. Again before that, review of literature, and then it starts from your origin point, identifying research problem. So this is a step, this is a process. On the basis of that, a researcher has to conduct and create hypothesis so that it can be effectively communicated, and not only communicated, it should be effectively tested. Because I am repeating it again, the moment your hypothesis is not testable properly, you are forming in such a way that it's not testable, it makes no sense to you. Therefore, be very accurate in terms of following all these steps in order to formulate your hypothesis. And you can see here, at the last, we have established that students with higher self-regulation skills perform better in online course than a student with lower self-regulation skills. This is a thing, this is a hypothesis that you are going to test. Types of hypothesis in formulation, this is another important thing. Let us discuss it. Generally, among all types of hypothesis, most of the time in a quantitative research especially, I am talking about, null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis are formed by researcher. Null hypothesis, when no relationship exists, when it signifies, when it donates no relationship exists, null hypothesis. In alternative hypothesis, a relationship exists. Whenever hypothesis is claiming some certain kind of a relationship, it is alternative hypothesis, and when no relationship exists, it's a null hypothesis. Let us see here. When formulating, decide whether the researcher aims to accept or reject the null. It's an important thing, whether the researcher aims to accept or reject the null hypothesis. H0, you can see H0 is a null hypothesis. Parental involvement has no effect on student achievement. Since it is claiming no effect, it's a no relationship hypothesis and null hypothesis. H0, alternative hypothesis, sometimes it is represented by HA also. Parental involvement significantly improves student achievement. Now here you can see, you have two different variables. First is parental involvement and second is student achievement. And it is mentioned that parental involvement significantly improves student achievement. You have established a relationship here, and since relationship is there, it will come under the category of alternative hypothesis. So it depends on you what kind of a situation, what kind of a nature of research is there. On the basis of that, you have to form your hypothesis. Educational examples of formulated hypothesis. Let us see some examples. First, school setting. Introducing peer tutoring program enhances students' problem solving skill in mathematics. It is very important to see some examples that how hypotheses have been formulated. So, you see a hypothesis related to a school setting, that introducing peer tutoring program enhances student problem solving skill in mathematics. Here again you can see and you can write down by your own self that which one is dependent variable, which one is independent variable in this hypothesis. It is a kind of activity that you can do by your own. Let us move to the second example. University setting. A student participating in flipped classroom achieve higher grades compared to those in traditional lecture format. You can again see here some kind of a relationship is there. Some kind of a relationship is there, and you have to identify also that which one is directional, which one is non-directional hypothesis. So, among all these two, try to do this also. Example number 3, adult education. Related to adult education, use of gamification increases participation rates in professional development course for teachers. This is another hypothesis. Now, among all these 3 hypotheses, you can clearly see that there is a one dependent variable and another is independent variable, and a established relationship is there, a tentative relationship is there between these 2 variables in the form of a hypothesis. Let us take one example here, example of good versus poor hypothesis. Poor hypothesis, generally which is not adequate. Using apps may help a student. Now here this hypothesis is being claimed as a poor because it is too vague. Too vague means it is not covering any kind of a variable specifically, neither it is establishing or reflecting any kind of a tentative relationship between the variables. It is not mentioning. That is why it comes under the category of poor hypothesis. Next is good hypothesis. Let us see. Primary school students using math learning apps daily will show greater improvement in calculation speed compared to those using traditional method. Now you can see here variables are clear. Variables are clear and their effect, their relationship is tentatively mentioned there, that which one affects which one. You can see here primary school students using math learning app means those students those who are using math learning app daily will show greater improvement in what? Calculation speed compared to those using traditional method. So, this kind of hypothesis you can form as per requirement and need of your study. Criteria checklist for hypothesis formulation. It is a checklist that whenever you are forming a hypothesis of your study, be very precise with this checklist that whether whatever you have tried is being done here or not. So, before finalizing your hypothesis, ensure it that it is based on literature or theory. Most important that whatever hypothesis you are forming, it should have some practical implication. This is very important for a researcher to understand that whatever hypothesis you are forming, you have to have it a practical implication of the hypothesis. Otherwise, only forming a statement which looks very nice, which appears to have a very good relationship, but it is not feasible to measure it, it is not feasible to be tested, then that kind of a hypothesis is not appropriate. So, it should be related to literature and theory. Next is identifying variable clearly. It is a checklist. We have already discussed this thing, but whenever you form your hypothesis, please tick on all these 5 components that I have done first, second, third, fourth and fifth. So, second is identify variable clearly. Whatever variable you have, be sure. If you have any doubt, you can consult to the person, those who are expert in research also, or your supervisor or any mentor that you have around, but do not move forward without having clear understanding of your variable. I am mentioning it 2-3 times because if you do not understand your variable, it is really problematic. you cannot establish a relationship between them, because you don't know that which variable is affecting which one. So be very concise with this thing, that which variable you have, and define and understand it clearly. Predict a relationship difference. Important aspect, predict a relationship difference, that what kind of relationship or difference do the variables have in your hypothesis. Is measurable or testable. Whatever you are forming, it should be testable. And last is aligning with research objective, that is key to hypothesis. जो भी hypothesis, जो भी परिकल्पनाएं आप बनाएंगे, इस बात का विशेष ध्यान शोधार्थी रखेंगे कि आपका हाइपोथेसिस, आपकी परिकल्पना आपके शोध उद्देश्यों से मिलती हुई होनी चाहिए। आप जो भी परिकल्पना बना रहे हैं वो परिकल्पनाएं आपके शोध उद्देश्यों पे आधारित हो, उनसे मिलता जुलता हो और उनकी समस्या का हल निकालने वाला होना चाहिए। इट इज नॉट लाइक दैट यू आर फॉर्मिंग अ हाइपोथेसिस बाय योर ओन। ओन मीन्स व्हाट यू फील। बिल्कुल भी इस बात का ध्यान रखेंगे, जब भी आप परिकल्पनाओं को बना रहे हों, परिकल्पनाओं को बनाते समय बार बार अपने रिसर्च क्वेश्चन को, अपने रिसर्च ऑब्जेक्टिव्स को जरूर पढ़ेंगे। द मोमेंट यू गेट कंफ्यूज दैट वेदर आई एम फॉर्मिंग राइट और रॉन्ग, जैसे ही आपको पता चले या लगे कि मैं कुछ गलती कर रहा हूं, इमीडिएटली आपको अपने शोध उद्देश्यों की तरफ देखना है, उन्हें पढ़ना है और वापस से रिकॉल करना है कि व्हाट इज द इंटेंट ऑफ माय ऑब्जेक्टिव, मैं अपने शोध उद्देश्यों से क्या प्राप्त करना चाहता हूं। और जैसे ही आप इस बात को पुनः समझेंगे कि आप क्या प्राप्त करना चाहते हैं, इट विल हेल्प यू दैट नॉट टू डेविएट हियर एंड देयर। ये बातें हमने पूर्व के व्याख्यान में भी आपसे चर्चा की है कि जब भी आप एक परिकल्पना का निर्माण करते हैं, शोध उद्देश्यों की भूमिका अहम हो जाती है। They are very important when you are forming hypothesis, because if you have an intent to study the study habits of students and you are forming a hypothesis related to attitude of the students, it is different in the sense of your intent. आपके उद्देश्यों का उद्देश्य क्या है ये आपको समझना पड़ेगा और लगातार इस बात पर फोकस रहना होगा कि आप जो भी उद्देश्य चुन रहे हैं, जो भी उद्देश्यों का निर्धारण आपने किया है, आपकी परिकल्पनाएं उन्हीं बातों पर, उन्हीं उद्देश्यों पर आधारित होनी चाहिए और उन्हीं को टेस्ट करने के लिए बनाई जानी चाहिए। सो आई होप you understand this checklist of hypothesis formulation, and whenever you form hypothesis, be very focused to all these 5 points. Now try it out. It's a exercise for all of you, that now formulate a hypothesis challenge. It's a challenge, it's an activity, do it. Draft a hypothesis for this research question. I am mentioning a research question here. Does early exposure to coding influence logical reasoning abilities among 5th grade students? आप इसे एक एक्सरसाइज की तरह यहाँ करें। मैं आपको एक रिसर्च क्वेश्चन, एक शोध प्रश्न आपको दे रहा हूँ। Does early exposure to coding influences logical reasoning abilities among 5th grade students? ये एक शोध प्रश्न है और इसके आधार पर आप एक नल हाइपोथेसिस बनाएं, एक अल्टरनेटिव हाइपोथेसिस बनाएं और साथ ही साथ इस चीज पर चिंतन करें, मनन करें कि जो भी वेरिएबल्स यहाँ रिसर्च क्वेश्चन में दिए गए हैं उनके आधार पर जो हाइपोथेसिस आप बना रहे हैं, उन हाइपोथेसिस के वेरिएबल कितने आपस में संबंधित हैं, किस प्रकार से संबंधित हैं और कितने मेजरेबल हैं। इट्स एक्टिविटी टास्क टू ऑल ऑफ यू, डू इट। आई एम रिपीटिंग इट अगेन। You have to form a null hypothesis on the basis of above research question mentioned, as well as you have to form a alternative hypothesis that is represented by H1 or HA, and use real variables and try to make a relationship between that variables and look into its testability, its measurability, that whatever you have formed is really measurable, is really feasible, and you can do it properly. So I am moving forward by giving this activity to you. Concluding discussion for today lecture. Major key takeaways: understood how to construct meaningful testable hypotheses in social science research. Here I have mentioned specifically that the way we form hypotheses in social science researches is a bit different from other researches. I have discussed in the previous lectures also. So try to understood and construct meaningful testable hypothesis in social science research, because we are dealing with the subject which contains subjective attributes like personality, opinion. They are subjective. So it's a very important for a social science researchers that you articulate, define, design and properly make your hypothesis. Otherwise, you are not going to test it properly. If you do not understand the relationship between variables, how they affect each other, definitely it is going to hamper your study in a very deeper manner, because whatever you test is going to come up in the form of output. So be very focused toward this and make your hypothesis testable. Have clear focus on identifying variable, predicting relationships and grounding predictions. This is important aspect, that always take care of this thing, that whenever you are forming hypothesis, you have to focus on identifying variable, predicting relationship and grounding it to the already existing theories and knowledge system. And last is frame hypothesis as per the need and requirement of the research objective. We have discussed many kind of a hypothesis, that what kind of hypothesis you can form in a research. Mostly in a quantitative study, null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis are formed, and some other researches, other kind of hypotheses are also formed. So it is recommended and suggested also that understand the nature of your research properly. For example, if your research is quantitative research, go for that kind of hypothesis. If your research is descriptive kind of a research, quantitative research, go for that kind of hypothesis. If your research is a qualitative research, then definitely you have to think something next apart from hypothesis in the form of assumptions you made for your study. So it's an important thing and a very crucial part of the research proposal, that whenever you are forming especially your research hypothesis, you have to form it in a way that it answers to you. I'm repeating, you have to form it in a way that it answers to you. If it is not answering to you, you are not going to come up with any kind of a conclusion. So whenever you frame your hypothesis, be very focused related to your approach of research, what kind of a design you are going to adopt in your research, and what kind of tools you are going to use, because this all things combine together and helps you in terms of making meaningful and testable hypothesis. So with this all, I hope you understand that how to formulate hypothesis, and this is all for today's lecture. Thank you so much.